Hey, what's up, party people? Happy Monday. Today we're going to be talking the Marvel and Netflix universes. They've sort of merged, but why? And how much? And to what end? We'll also go through your fan questions. And also Kim at the end got to attend a Moon Knight junket and speak with Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. And holy poop, am I jealous of her? Damn, that sounds like a good one. So I'm excited to see that as well. But we begin with the news you can use. You can now go watch all of the Netflix Marvel stuff on Disney Plus with some improved parental control filters, I imagine, for the Luke Cage sex scenes and things of that nature. And blood and all the cool curse words and, you know, the stuff that made Marvel Netflix what it was. That said, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, The Punisher. These were not meant to be MCU canon, if I recall correctly. Even at the beginning, like they were very light on. Maybe they said the word Thor once in a while, but otherwise there was not much crossover. And before we really dive in, Eric, can you help remind me why weren't these canon in the first place? What's the origin of the rift?
I mean, again, people will say they were canon, but at the end of the day, you have this big issue, which is Kevin Feige was always the guy heading up the movies, the main person guiding the movies, but he was not guiding the TV shows. And at one point, he was also answering to Ike Perlmutter at Marvel, but they still were having a different TV division. So they were already doing these things separately, but they were trying to make those connections, especially with S.H.I.E.L.D. early on. But then they had the split where Feige got so much power that he was able to say, I don't want to report to Ike, and I just get to report right up to Disney proper. And now there was not even that little bit of tenuous partnership. So the TV shows were still being produced. They were still sort of kind of trying to connect to the movies, but the guy making the movies is not even like dealing with the people making the TV shows. So it was always going to make this. It's like as if Star Wars was happening when when Lucas ran it all. If he ran the movies, but Clone Wars, he had nothing to do with,
Yeah.
And so it just made this strange divide, this strange, like, two steps away thing for these shows.
But if I recall, it wasn't even just a divide and we don't have much interaction. Like there was active distaste.
Feige
to Perlmutter, right?
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. I mean, it's funny. I was reading, there's like a really good book that's sort of like the history of Marvel Studios. But it is an officially licensed book. So they definitely talk about there being some issues, but you still feel like they can't fully go into it. But it just sounds like, there was definitely some tension there. And the fact that, Feige was making hit after hit after hit, it still had to answer to a guy that he felt was like curtailing him maybe halfway creatively, because we've heard that he was being told he couldn't do movies about women or maybe Black people, like that there was like some issues with some huge hit movies they would eventually make that he was not being able to make. And also with maybe the purse strings being a little tighter, and just said, hey guys, I just gave you like a bunch of huge hits in a row, and was able to kind of cut that cord and go off to be the free bird that he is.
Yeah. But Danielle, you think all of Marvel content was better in the 90s pre-Feige, right?
yes,
you like the Perlmutter era?
Without a doubt, everything to a 1. It was all way better. We all had a much better time. Iron Man.
Yeah, not my Iron Man. So we've had little tastes now these days in No Way Home and in Hawkeye. They're starting to sprinkle back in some of our old faves. And by old faves, I mean the characters of Daredevil and nothing else, unless I've missed something. Now, I guess before we dive too far in, should these shows be canon? Are we supposed to take the attitude of like, they're all now canon until somebody tells us otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, at this point now we have to. I always, because they would still talk about things that happened. They just wouldn't say, oh, remember when the Chitauri like came and messed up New York? They'd be like, oh, remember the incident? Oh God, how much the incident sucked. Oh, wow, we really hated that incident. It's like, well, that sounds like something that happened when you were in like 8th grade, where it's like, oh, remember the incident? Like, it doesn't sound like, an alien invasion of New York. But I always took it, except for, with the exception of Runaways, I took most of them to be that they were canon. They were just in a different, they were like the ground level. But now I think we have to take everything, at least everything they say is canon is now canon. Because nowadays with Marvel, and literally with any of these, we're at a point now where they can pick and choose, and we'll all just go, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. You want to decide that this thing is here and this thing isn't here. We've dealt with multiverse stuff now, so we all understand how it works, and it's fine, and we can deal with it.
Right. But what about the level of integration? Are you happy with it just being like a nod here, a nod there? Like maybe Happy will call his friend Foggy for advice or something like that, and that's it? Or do you think that these shows deserve to be, I don't know, coronated or given like another season of Daredevil on Disney Plus or something like that? Or do you expect / want this to just stay like winking and nodding to the people that watched The Defenders?
I think it's got to be a little bit in the middle. And I know like people that are huge fans of these shows want it, the coronation. They want to like, you are 100% canon. It all happened, which I don't think is going to.
In real life, we made all of this happen.
Right?
Yeah.
I think what you're seeing now is this nice acknowledgement with like the return of Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio. It's like, hey, they made some good casting decisions. Why? There's no reason they can't keep playing these characters. Yeah. But are they going to reference every single thing that happened on those shows? I don't think so. Look, I mean, there's a lot of weird rumors that we can't substantiate about, like maybe Daredevil will get a show again on Disney Plus starring Charlie Cox. I think that's totally possible. I also wouldn't expect it to be like a hard continuation of season 3 of Daredevil. It's just you have to keep in mind, no matter everything else, is that there were hundreds of hours of television produced that Kevin Feige had nothing to do with. And it's almost like you have to accept with comic books when a new creative team comes on and the characters are, they're basically the same, but they might start acting a little bit different. Or someone might say, Daredevil's been really dark for a while. It's time to lighten him up and things change. I think that's how you kind of have to look at it. It's like, it's different people guiding them now. So it's just not going to sync up. I don't know. I doubt if Kevin Feige has watched all 300 and whatever episodes of all these shows.
He is a huge Inhumans fan.
Just Inhumans. He just keeps watching that over and over.
Yeah. Ooh, I hope he didn't just watch The Defenders to kill. I'll just watch The Defenders and I'll get caught up.
But I mean, I don't want to lump Inhumans in with something like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but like you said, there are hundreds of hours of non-Netflix, non-Feige approved television. What about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans? Runaways was a thing. Cloak and Dagger existed. I guess odds are / desire to see any of that pop back up. Are either of you S.H.I.E.L.D. fans?
I like S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, I like S.H.I.E.L.D. I would totally be cool with those characters coming back. Like, having Chloe Bennett come back as Quake be really cool. Again, S.H.I.E.L.D. had like 130 episodes or something. I don't think they're gonna, if they ever bring those characters back or Ming-Na Wen back as May, I don't think you get some like hardcore connections to the stories of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's more just like, hey, that was fun casting. Right. Why not bring that person back?
Yeah, I could see them bringing back Coulson.
Yeah, they
already brought back Coulson for obviously with the de-aging for Captain Marvel. So I don't see why they couldn't, oh hey, by the way, I'm alive now. And it's like, well, I guess the 2 people that your sacrifice really mattered to are gone now, so it doesn't affect them anymore.
He's going to step out of a parallel universe when Sam Jackson gets bored and be like, I'm Nick Fury in this one. Hello. Can you call me Nick Fury for simplicity's sake? Great. Here's my eye patch.
But that's where I think it does get tricky, is like, because as much as it's like Inhumans is, I don't think has almost anyone being like, no, that was great. It was all produced by the same people. So you do get the thing of like, it kind of all has to count or none. And that's why I think it's going to all remain in a gray area of like, the sort of picking and choosing. And yeah, we'll bring back, I don't think, they're going to be going back into the world of Inhumans, but it sort of exists out in that murky ether. And one day, if Marvel Studios is like, we have to do an Inhuman story, then they have to make a decision of like, yeah, we're just ignoring everything from that TV show. But for now, they can kind of just be like, it's off screen. It's not mentioned. It's out there.
Yeah. I love that comic book movies are just comic books now, where we get to pick and choose our canon willy-nilly as we will and decide what counts and what doesn't. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I was just pondering, like, I think that there's only one game left in town for these characters, and it's Marvel or Disney. And, it's a contradiction to me, because on one hand, I believe that they will do a better job with these characters than Netflix was doing, and then ABC and their other partners and stuff like that. They've earned it. They've shown that they know what to do. 6 episodes and out. They put mega budgets at these things, and they all, it's a factory. They're doing a great job. But I still kind of wish that we had, I don't know, a loosening of intellectual property laws, or just things had shaken out differently, because I liked that there were different tones possible on different outlets. You could have this kind of superhero story on Netflix, this kind of superhero story at a Marvel movie, and this kind of one, Fox, that's a whole other thing that's been absorbed by Disney. And just another, it's like if DC Comics went out of business, like, and Marvel started doing Batman, like, okay, congratulations. You earned it, I guess.
I was a huge fan of Legion, and I want there to be room for like the Legions, and it's like almost
Legions and Malogans, please.
Legions and Malogans. You almost feel like they're gonna have to do like a branding thing, because we talked about, like, DC is at a place mostly because they failed to make a better, a well done integrated universe. So now they're doing Joker and stuff. That's like, oh, that's just its own thing. It would be cool if Marvel gets to a place where they can do something like Legion, and they can brand it however they want. Tales from the Multiverse. And that's how you get like some weird filmmakers to do their own Marvel thing. Be like, it's a Tales from the Multiverse story, and you tell your own version. And guess what? One day we can bring that version into a crazy crossover story. But for now, it can just be its own thing.
Well,
I love that they did that.
We don't think that something kind of weird and like a different mood. We don't think that Moon Knight's going to do that. Because that's kind of how I feel about Moon Knight, is that's going to be something that's going to be like a different tone and isn't going to be exactly the Marvel look and formula. Am I wrong?
I mean, I've seen some Moon Knight, and I think I can say, since I'm not under social media embargo, let's consider this an adjunct. And other people have been talking about this. Moon Knight is notably unconnected as far as like mentions. It's the thing that it's been years since I've watched a Marvel Studios thing that had this little mentions of other stuff to remind you they're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it is supposed to 100% be set there, but I am happy to see in Moon Knight they're not like, make sure someone jokes about Captain America, make sure someone throws in, like, literally, I think I've caught like the tiniest little things, and they're not consequential. So I like that. I love it, but I feel like that's very tricky for them to do these days. Even Eternals, which was pretty separate, they still had to be like, Thanos, we have to talk about Thanos.
Yep. Well, okay, so just wrapping up, because I want to move on to we have some good fan questions rolling in. I think where I shake out on this is that I want it all to be canon, because Marvel is going to need a whole lot of people that have been secretly Skrulls the whole time, and they're not going to want to burn it on like Mark Ruffalo. So guess what? You're all Skrulls.
That would be funny, right? Because like,
sorry, Danny.
Sorry, Danny. And like Inhumans is like a whole thing, because S.H.I.E.L.D. introduced Inhumans first before the Inhuman show, and it's such a whole world unto itself. What if they're just like, every Inhuman you met was a Skrull?
Yeah. Oops, just Skrulls.
Yeah, they're all Skrulls, and there's some real Inhumans out there. Now we're going to introduce the real.
But also, and you can keep Matt Murdock as like the traveling lawyer to the superheroes. Like you have Night Nurse, patch them all up. He's always the public defender that pops in.
Wasn't Medusa actually a Skrull in
She
or was
might have
that
been.
Crystal? I think that was Crystal. It was one of the Inhumans.
It was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually a Skrull in the comics, so.
But what you're saying, Spencer, is like, something I loved when I was a kid is like, and they did it in No Way Home, right? Like Matt Murdock was just a lawyer. He didn't have to like suit up, and they didn't do that. He did catch a brick. But even it's funny because even when they were doing those shows, the Netflix shows crossed over, but the rest of them didn't cross over with the Netflix shows. And it still felt strange. I'm like, even these TV shows that are supposed to be in the same world aren't really acknowledging each other. So it's the fun thing with it all being under Feige, that it's like now they can do that. But I completely agree with you. I also hope they're like, let's get weird, and maybe that takes promising a filmmaker. You don't have to bring Wong in. You'll be okay with that.
Wong doesn't want to be in anyway, so that makes it easy. Wong wants nothing to do with it.
You could always, just pull a Wong out of the multiverse and wave your hands and do whatever you want. That is their trump card is the multiverse. They can sort out, they can pick and choose anything they want to keep and anything they want to toss out. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you know who else is brilliant? You, for subscribing and clicking like and ringing the bell, you genius. You're going to be rewarded with more of the same, like these fan questions. Some of these are news to me. Lucas W writes, what are your thoughts on Rachel Zegler from West Side Story not being invited to the Oscars? Why was she not invited to the Oscars? What's going on here? Anybody know the story?
I know the story, which was like someone on Instagram saying to her, like, can you tell us anything about what you're going to wear to the Oscars? And her saying, actually not invited to the Oscars. And then it became like a thing. It's weird. I realize, it's like we're doing the Oscars and they're going to be a much more full version than last year, but I'm sure there's still COVID protocols. And yes, she's overseas filming Snow White, but she's filming Snow White for Disney, who made West Side Story. So you'd still think they would be like, get her over there, it's like, for this movie.
Also, you would think that because it was also nominated for Best Picture,
Right.
she would be invited.
Yeah.
So just doing some quick research, some live research. Each nominee and presenter gets they're offered a pair of tickets. Does that mean them and a +1, or they get 2 extras?
I think it's them and a +1, and she's not nominated, but it's very normal, obviously, to see stars of the nominated movies there. So
and then there's also an allotment given to each studio to Disney, right. And like she's, like you said, starring in a Disney movie. You'd think they'd want her there at the Oscars. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird.
Sucks. That's really. I'm sorry, because it's I'm not saying that she's not incredibly talented, but I'm saying if I'm an actor and I'm in something Oscar nominated, I'm not going to take it for granted that this is just going to keep happening. So if this is my shot at the Oscars and I'm not invited, I'm crying for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that sucks.
That's terrible.
I mean, also she's like 19, right? So I'm sure she's feeling all the feels, So I hope, I have a feeling there's like they're getting all this attention that they'll make it happen now. But it is.
I don't know. Disney's pretty cheap. They wouldn't want to like stop production on a princess movie just to keep make somebody feel good.
But don't they have like a special princess jet? They can just like whisper over there.
Yeah. Wong will pop out of a portal.
Gosh, that's like you get there, your movie is Oscar nominated, you don't get the nomination, even though you're Maria. Everyone is talking about Anita. Oh, what a hardcore bummer.
Yeah, and I thought she was amazing. Whatever. Great. That's for another time. James Bond asks, what narrative conveniences do you hate? For me, it's characters hanging up without saying goodbye.
Oh my God. Okay, I have so many. My biggest one is someone, usually a mom, makes this whole gorgeous, beautiful, full breakfast on the table. Kid comes down, grabs one friggin' slice of toast, and then leaves.
Yep.
That is the absolute worst. I hate it so much.
It brings me no joy to inform me that at least having a toddler, that is mostly true of every meal. Is you make them like a bunch of food and they like smash their hand in the yogurt and then like smear it on their face, take one bite and say, all done.
But it's funny. I think it's, at least we understand, like with like a toddler, like you have to make them that food. But I do think it's funny that, in movies, like even when the kids are like high school age, first of all, the families are like making a full breakfast every morning, which is seems weird. And then B, that, like someone just grabs toast.
It's like eggs, waffles, pancakes, bacon, fresh fruit, oatmeal, cereal. Like they literally, if someone was just like, what's breakfast? I don't know, just make every breakfast. And then the kid comes out and is like, oh, sorry, mom, gotta leave. I gotta jam and get to school. And it's like, you know what time your kids go to school. Why aren't you making breakfast earlier? I don't know. For some reason, that just super bugs me because I'm like, well, what do they do with all the eggs? Like, that's just such a waste of food.
It's the international symbol for breakfast is just like an overflowing basket of bread, eggs, pancakes, fruit, cereal boxes. So no one forgets what meal you're trying to eat.
Man, they gotta go to the grocery store a lot in those households. James did say, do we hate? And I wouldn't say I hate these things, but to the jump outer, and I've tweeted about both of these. One is simply accepting the fact that how weird and funny it is how close everyone stands to each other in movies and TV shows. Again, I understand why this is happening, that it makes for a better shot. it's intense, whether you're enemies, whatever, but just I think I've mentioned before, think about how awkward it would be if everyone just stood that close. Forget COVID of it all. Just, traditionally was just standing that close. But the other one that's kind of a variation on what James was mentioning is I always laugh about, and they do this in TV a lot, and I understand why they do it, but people going to someone's house to tell them one quick thing and then leaving.
Yeah.
And I get that they do it because it's both quicker, one set versus two, and it works better than a phone conversation. It just dramatically feels better. But it's so weird. Think about what that would be like in your real life if you're like, I'm just gonna go travel across town to this guy's house I'm friends with, he'll open the door, I'm gonna tell him something, and then walk away. That's it.
And no one calls first? No one texts? You just come over and assume people are home?
And then stand real close. It's terrifying.
Stand really close and then leave 2 minutes later.
And usually just stand in the doorway and then bounce. And it's like, I had to put on a bra for this? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we're not gonna hang out. Like, what's going on?
Came all the way over here. I put on my wig. Like, what are you doing?
I like that. I've got one that's again, don't hate, but I always just kind of chuckle when I see it, of people who know each other, but one of them will just state, the character's profession and log line, when they show up, Kate, you're a 50-year-old writer who lives in New York City and is still pining after the one you've loved. You've got to get over this. If you're friends, you wouldn't restate the person's age, profession, and central character conflict when they popped in to say hi.
Or relatives. Hey, big brother, how's your day today?
Yeah,
it's doing great, little sis.
Yeah. TV pilot-itis.
TV pilot-itis. Big brother, you're back from the war you were in, and I hope you're not emotionally scarred, and you're an FBI agent who specializes in profiling. Hello.
Look, I know you haven't been the same since that space mission went wrong, but you have to stop blaming yourself for that.
Yeah.
Here it is, guys.
Let's go visit our mother, the woman who birthed us from her body.
From her body.
But yeah, the I love the little brother, sis. I never call my sister and brother that, and it is a very funny part of TV that we're just like, all right, hey, sis.
All right, we'll end on this before we go to Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. Dang, that's what a great get. I hope they had fun. Jim One asks, excuse me, I revisited the prequel trilogy ahead of Obi-Wan. Am I the only one who likes these movies a lot more now? Judging by the internet, no. I have remained steadfast in my prequel non-revisionism, in that I thought they sucked when they come out, and I still think they do, despite a few nice flourishes here and there. But overall, terrible viewing experience, very boring, would not watch again. 0 out of 10. Not 0 out of 10. I'm exaggerating. Mid, 5, 6 out of 10. That said, people love the prequels, and I'm not telling you not to love them. I'm just disagreeing with you. But what do you guys think? Prequels, it's a trope at this point. People love the prequels.
Yeah, I think a lot of what happened is that a lot of the people who it was their Star Wars because they watched it when they were young, and now they are of age, and they're like, hey, stop dumping on this thing that I really liked when I was a kid. It's not even that I hate them, they're terrible, they ruined everything. It's just it's boring. It's just real boring. I just don't care about trade negotiations. I wish I did, and if you are someone who trade is what you do and that's what you want to watch all day, then that's fantastic. It's just not for me. But there are parts of it that I like, and I'll go back and I'll watch them. I do think that a lot of it is a lot of people have rediscovered Clone Wars now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the old Filoni stuff, and Filoni
it's filled in the gaps nicely.
Has done so much to fill in those gaps and to kind of rehab that series.
The character and the emotion that was missing from the movies has been inserted in thanks to Filoni.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is part of it as well, which is great. That's what the great part about having an expanded universe is for. But yeah, no, I don't hate them. I will say I do. Once I went back and I watched Clone Wars and I've watched more of that, I have gone back and have more of I kind of see what we were getting at, and but it's not for me. But it's okay. It's for a lot of people. Good for them.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of the same as you guys. It's look, I feel the same as I always have, which is those are some highly flawed movies with some big problems you guys both mentioned. There are moments I like in all of them. There are some cool sequences and fun stuff that I'm like, that's awesome. But overall, there's also some decisions made that I'm just like, oh, why? But yeah, you definitely saw, people who were, it hit them as, little kids grew up and were like, hey, this is Star Wars. I love it. That's why I keep telling people it's going to happen with the sequel trilogy too. Maybe not to the same extent because those movies are even more divisive, but it's like, I'm just saying, if you were like 8 when like you watched Rise of Skywalker, you're just going to like in 10 years be like, Rise of Skywalker is awesome. What are you talking about? And
let the record show, I know we're on the elder millennial side of things here. I was maybe 12, 13 when I saw Phantom Menace. And in that theater, I thought, this is boring. When could we go? So I wasn't a little kid, but like,
I was 5. It was the second movie I ever saw.
Oh, wow.
And it fucking ruled. But in its defense, I had the VHS of it, and I would just fast forward through 80% of the movie to the mall part.
Oh, well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, like when you're a kid, you just remember the parts that were cool, and you're just like, yeah, let me make that my personality forever.
Yeah, that's true. And I am on that weird, like, too old for the prequels, too young for the original trilogy, because that's my experience of the original trilogy was my brother's VHS tapes that I would fast forward through to the cool parts, which is why those movies have no filler. They're so great when you fast forward through a lot of it.
I will running the gamut here because I am an actual Gen Xer, but I was like really trying to convince myself I love Phantom Menace. Like I saw it a bunch of times. I was like, no, it's great. It's great. But I remember walking out of it. My friend, she was like, what was with that like frog guy? She's talking about Jar Jar. She was like, and you're like, yeah, that was a little weird.
The frog guy.
It was great. And then you're like, maybe it's not so great. But at the same time, like I did, I totally saw like, people who experienced it the way you did, Ryan. And yeah, I think it makes sense that it's been like, people have been like, hey, there's things I loved about this growing up. And it just is the way it goes. I mean, I tweeted this weekend about how it kind of happens with everything. I am a little dreading. My joke was I'm dreading when it happens to the Transformers sequels, because it's like Batman and Robin has gotten, it's like, hey, this is super fun thing. Like it just almost everything gets that happening, because if you saw it at the right time, you're just like, what are you talking about? What's not awesome about Batman and Robin on ice skates fighting a blue guy? That's
Billy made a 100-episode podcast based off that entire idea.
That's right.
I'm like, why not? Yeah, I think to Spencer's point, like 13 is around the age, because I remember seeing X-Men: The Last Stand, and that would have been my first, like, I'm a teenager and I grew up with these movies. And that was the first time I was like, what is this bullshit?
Pass. Yeah.
So
it's hard, right? Because you don't want
That's when a boy becomes a man.
Yeah.
They fall out of
time they hate on a movie.
Franchise.
Is this disappointing?
just like seeing the Porcupine X-Men guy and being like, oh man, things are different now.
That is a very important part of childhood. The first time you realize that entertainment can be bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that all those trailers lied to you.
Yes.
Each one of us has our own little villain origin story, don't we?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, enough of us. Let's look at some pretty famous people. Not that we aren't all beautiful in our own ways. Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. My God, what a pair. Moon Knight and Moon Knight's BFF. I'm not sure who he's playing, but
he's the antagonist of the story.
Yeah.
Kim actually spoke to them together, which is pretty cool. They're buddies. I think the story is Oscar Isaac helped convince Ethan Hawke to do this movie. So yeah, they talked about sort of the sort of mental issues that reflect onto Moon Knight as a character. Ethan Hawke talked about his character and sort of where he sees that guy on sort of the villain spectrum. And then they talked about their favorite superheroes growing up, and it's interesting to hear Oscar Isaac talk about his history with Apocalypse. Speaking of the X-Men franchise.
Learning.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Can't wait. All right. We'll see you guys later this week. Thank you so much for watching. Let's check out that junket.
I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
These are some complex characters. Oscar, what are your thoughts on the character's psyche, and what discussions did you have?
Well, yes, we had a lot of discussions about it, because I think it was important that this wasn't just his backstory or, a plot point, but actually was the entire focus of the whole thing, and that the language of the show, the language of the storytelling was all connected to really what's happening to him internally, the internal struggle. And I found that the more research I did about dissociative identity disorder, the more I saw that the actual language used is very dreamlike and symbolic. Sometimes they're a castle or a labyrinth, witches, dark clouds, forces. So already the language used to describe the feeling of that internal struggle is quite mythological. So I found that there was actually, if we could key into that and connect everything that's happening in some symbolic way to that internal struggle, that we would succeed.
Sounds easy.
But you know, that was fun for me too, because as soon as I heard Oscar talking like that, I started thinking about dreams and what a doctor would think about that. And my brain immediately went to Carl Jung and his way that he would study dreams and mythology and how those kind of symbols connect and how that connects to the superhero universe. Shadow self, and what is that? And that was kind of a key into the villain role for me, was how to be the opposite of what he was going through. And so to take Carl Jung and turn him bad. One of the key ways to play a villain is not to consider them a villain, right? I've always think of myself as my character's lawyer, you know, and to defend their position. That's part of my job. But I've been really wary of playing villains, because if you teach people to see your madness, it's hard for them to unsee it. And so you have to do it in something worthy.
There's chaos in you. Embrace the chaos.
You've both done the superhero thing before. Oscar, you've apocalypsed, and Ethan, you've Batmaned even.
Did you Batman?
I did a voice of a children's show of Batman. But
Cool.
What superhero did you both want to be growing up?
I mean, I was really into Apocalypse because I grew up in a very religious household that all they talked about was the end of the world, the actual apocalypse. And so for me, that there was a comic book character that was the villain that symbolized the apocalypse and the four horsemen and all that, it just freaked me out. So I was really attracted to him. That and Wolverine. I think those two were like
Wolverine was cool.
I like Wolverine because Wolverine's short.
Yeah.
I'm short.
You're not that short.
I mean, short enough.
All right.
You could still do that. What about you, Ethan?
I used to get like those toy superheroes, and I would put cowboy hats on them and pistols in them. I wanted to be I wanted to be a cowboy. That was my superhero.
No, well, that's fair enough. Cowboys are cool. Had either of you ever considered becoming a part of the MCU before? And had you been asked?
I had, actually. We had some conversations before. And just it was never the right thing. Yeah.
They make a lot of movies that people really want to see. So if you're an actor in, 2022, it's gonna come up. I'd had some dialogues. I remember I've had some friends that directed them. I made some hard plays at some that I didn't get, and then I got offered some that I didn't want to do. And this one felt right.